And so my reaction to this responsibility and to this opportunity is a very mixed one. But above all else, it is an acute awareness of the work we have to do.
I was working at a restaurant across from the high school where I was going to school, and I used to work from 11:30 till 1 and make hamburgers and wash dishes and take the money that people paid for those kind of lousy lunches we served.
Mr. Chairman and gentlemen, I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the members of the committee for your willingness to hear my views on the situation in South Vietnam. I'm afraid that they will not be new to many of you, since you have often heard me express them in the days when I was an official of the government. I agree thoroughly with the motivating purpose of these hearings, namely to analyze the reasons why we're involved in South Vietnam, the importance of this involvement, and the effectiveness with which we are dealing with the resultant problems.
Actually, may I say that the award should go to the fine citizens of the city of New Orleans who have worked during these past years unceasingly for the cause of better government in our city.
25 or 6 years ago, when I was trying to prevent the last World War, there still was time. But we couldn't get Americans to support our friends and not support our enemies, in the idea that if we supported our enemies, they'd become our friends, and our friends, having seen how we treated our enemies, wouldn't become our enemies in order that they could get the same good treatment from it. That's a little complicated, but that was the nature of our policy in those days. It led to Pearl Harbor.
When you consider what's going on in this country, when you see the attempts to divide the law-abiding public from the Negro community, which are ridiculous, I came here tonight in several police cars. The faces were not white faces, they were black faces, and those black faces are just as dedicated to the preservation of law and opportunity in this country as anyone.
Well, it would be a better world in which there was more equality and in which the democratic process which functions politically would be extended to economic life and industrial society. That would be a shorthand way of putting it.
His presence on the board is all for the good, and he has brought to the Regents a refreshingly new and, I might say, unprecedentedly vigorous attitude and point of view. I have reference to Mr. Carl Corder, whom I shall present to you in just a moment after I give you some biographical information.
The latest case, actually, was a case that Congressman Charles Goodell of New York has developed. It was not a case that I came up with. It involved the various gifts to the President's Club by an individual who apparently is not giving it because of his overriding belief and support of the Great Society in view of the fact that he seems he's a Republican.
Now, Governor Reagan is not responsible for what has happened over the last 4 years, nor am I. The man who should be here tonight to respond to those charges chose not to attend. But I want to answer as specifically as I can the question that you have just put to me. And let me tell you that I, first of all, oppose an election year tax cut.
Well, of course, for a long time, people come into Little Rock who had this media concept of what happened in Little Rock and who had read about it and talked about it, say they were a corporation. They would have to look at the situation over real carefully so as to be sure that their employees that they bring in here from out of the state, that their children would have an opportunity for an education.
I have to be very modest about that. I would say certainly as we look at the African peoples in Nigeria, for example, I just got a wonderful invitation to go to Nigeria to be present at the installation at the Governor General Ezekwe, an old friend, who will now, and I had to cable him. I'm in Australia. I certainly would like to be with you, but I'm out here with some good folks. But I'll get to Nigeria later.
So I just put that out as an advance notice that if you want to discount a point or two for total objectivity, be prepared to do so. I'll tell you exactly what I feel is my position or my thoughts on a given subject, but being only human, maybe I err a little bit because of my political affiliation.